I mean, yeah, you got to be aggressive. You got to wake up every day and live, breathe, eat, and sleep music, and really prove that you deserve to be an artist, because nothing is free and there is no handouts, especially in the music industry.
Get ready. This is Inside the RV. Inside the RV. You're joined by your hosts, artist manager Jacob Moore and music artist Ryan Ramirez.
Yo, insiders, thank you for tuning back into Inside the RV, the best entrepreneurship and self-development podcast in the music business that there is. Today, we have an amazing guest on. I am so stoked. We have the president and founder of Hitskope Music Group. He is a graduate from the Berklee College of Music Business program, and he's also a member of the Recording Academy. This guy has been mentioned in Forbes, Yahoo News, Vice, BuzzFeed. Are we going to spend the whole episode talking about this guy's resume right here, man? What's going on? No, we'll get into it. Everyone, please welcome Danny Barros.
Thank you, man. Thank you guys for having me.
Yes, sir. Yeah, man. Thank you for coming down. 2.5 hour drive.
Yeah, it was a little rough, but I'm happy to be here.
That's so dope, man. So for all the listeners, tell us about Hitskope. What is Hitskope Music Group?
Yeah, so Hitskope Music Group, we started as an artist management company. And we've since grown into an artist management company. We're also a record label that's powered by Sony Music, The Orchard. And this year, we're also launching a production company, too, getting into a little bit of film and TV, doing music-themed documentaries and stuff.
So how many artists do you have on your roster?
On my management roster, I have 5. And then on the label, through the label, we distribute for about 16 artists.
Okay. Are you at that point in your career where you've been able to be a little more hands-off, or would you say that you still day in, day out, Monday through Sunday, are really grinding your ass off?
Yeah, no, I'm still really grinding my ass off. Being hands-off sounds nice, but I'm still, working 16-hour days at least, and, but I love it. I love what I do. So it's, they say if you find what you love, when you love what you do, it's never really feels like work. So I'm kind of at that point.
Cool. When did that happen for you? When you first started grinding on Hitskope, and you didn't start Hitskope right out of college?
No.
Okay.
No. So one of my first jobs ever was being a promoter.
Okay.
I was 18 years old going to 21 plus clubs because all my friends were older. And what happened was I would always go with a ton of people, and a club owner came up to me and was like, hey, every time you're here, you always bring a bunch of people. How about I start paying you and I give you a free bottle and you just bring people every week? Nice. So at 18, considering I wasn't even supposed to be there, I was like, yeah, that's a pretty good deal. And that ended up kind of like spiraling out to like having other clubs call me, and then, they would start asking me to book the talent. And by the time I was 21, I had my own company, which I founded with another friend of mine. It was called the D Squared Entertainment Group. And we became a pretty big talent agency. We were managing a roster of 15 DJs, and we were serving as talent buyers. We had 9 events per week all around Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Hampshire, and New York City. And then from there, from managing DJs and stuff, I kind of got into running venues. I was running 6 venues in Boston. I was working for the Kraft Group, Jonathan and Robert Kraft, overseeing a live venue that they had at Gillette Stadium where the Patriots play. And from there, I was like, I want to learn the music business more. So I went back to school full-time while working full-time at Berklee College of Music to try to pursue my master's.
Wow. So, sorry, go ahead, bro.
Do you play any music at all, too, or?
No, I mean, once upon a time, I was a rapper.
Okay.
Turns out I wasn't all that great. But yeah, I played drums for a little while, but, I was that kid, as soon as I got my car, I kind of forgot about the drum kit.
Okay.
But, I still write with a lot of my artists. I like to think I have a pretty good ear. But as far as like playing music or, you're never going to catch me on a song spitting bars or anything like that.
I get you.
So where did the fire come from then? I mean, you said, so, you dabbled in musicianship a little bit. Was there a particular moment where you were like, okay, I'm going to go back to school. This is going to happen. I'm going to make something huge. Or did you just kind of say, I'm from the East Coast. Berklee's here. I'm a really intelligent guy. I can get in. I'm going to do my thing. Let's see where it goes. Or was there a moment where you were like, nope, we're going hard, going 100%?
Yeah, well, I always kind of had, I was taking courses here and there, but what catapulted me into going back to school full time was I got fired from my job.
Oh, okay.
Over some bullshit, but I got fired from my job, and I was like, you know what, like running venues and stuff was kind of burning me out anyway. So getting fired, I was like, I don't want to go work for someone else again and have this happen.
Yeah.
So I said, I want to work for myself. I think I'm better as an entrepreneur than I am as an employee. So, I was like, I'm going to go back to school full time while still managing my artists, tour managing and everything else. And, while I was right in that beginning period, I started going back part time. And after everything happened, I had a couple of artists that were breaking. A band I was working with out of Boston, and my artist Michael Constantino. And we were getting these opportunities, deal offers and stuff. And when I was looking at them, I didn't know what the hell they said. I was like, I thought I knew a lot about the music industry, but until you're really like seeing these things and getting these opportunities, you realize, I need to be more educated. So I was like, I'm going back full time. Berkeley was one of the greatest experiences of my life. To this day, all of my artists have pretty much come through some type of connection that I've had through either my professors or classmates. They've all come through Berkeley.
Okay. I love where we're going with this because I feel like everyone watching this is like, ask this question. From the president of the music group, what do you look at when you're evaluating an artist to sign to your roster for your record label?
For me, like when I'm looking to sign an artist, I look at, they have to have a proper perspective. They have to be realistic about the goals that they want to achieve. But the biggest thing is work ethic. I've signed... from a management standpoint over the years, some great artists that just didn't really have a powerful work ethic. They were only working a few days a week and not really taking it seriously. And I've, on an artist development side, I've worked with artists who had a taste of success and then just kind of were comfortable with that and then took some time off, So I like when people reciprocate the energy. If I'm going to be busting my ass working for you and trying to get you your career to where you want it to be, I expect the same. I expect you to be hustling and everything too. But you obviously got to have a powerful product. You got to have great songs, great music. I really like artists that branch out and collaborate with people. Doing everything yourself is great. But if you look at, the Billboard charting history, most of the songs that chart on Billboard are through collaborations, songwriting and stuff like that. So I like artists that have that network, that have that infrastructure, that, they know exactly what they're doing from a musical standpoint. And that's really what I look for. Because everything else can kind of come into place if those things are already there.
The foundation, right?
The foundation's got to be there.
I think that I actually saw in another podcast that someone said, and I actually disagree with this, they said, you can break any artist with the proper budget. And I thought if there's a couple of circumstances that are true, like they do have the powerful product, they do have the unbelievable work ethic, they do have the collaborative nature in them, and all of those foundational things are fulfilled, then I would say, okay, maybe I can see where that's true, but I want to get your take on this because I don't think you can throw $1 million at you can't polish a piece of shit. What is that? Is that the what everybody usually says? Like you can't turn a piece of shit into gold or something like that. And I think that there's a misconception that just if you can throw money at this music artist, they will blow up. But I just look at it from like a product development standpoint. Like if you do not have a good product and there's not a marketplace that's willing to pay a great price for it in order to run a business model that you have written out, I don't give a shit what your budget is. I don't think that you can make that happen. What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, fun fact, about 90% of artists that are signed to major labels never recoup their deals. So, I mean, and that's tons, that's millions and millions of dollars, put behind them from a marketing standpoint. I strongly disagree that, any budget, because if you have a $10 million budget and you're not spending that in the right places, or you don't have the right team in place, or you're not prepared for certain opportunities, that $10 million can go really quick.
Yeah.
So I would disagree with that. I think it takes a lot. You need a really solid team. You need really solid music, you need a really solid work ethic, and it takes all those things coming together to really get an artist to a breakout point.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion is that you can work wonders like with a big budget in the right places, and that might work for an artist like in the short run. Maybe one song does something, some kind of antics, like whatever. But I think it really depends on the longevity, like of what you're saying. Like you got to have that foundation as an artist of being able to like time after time after time, song after song, to be able to keep up with it. Because I feel like with a $10 million budget, you're gonna get eyeballs on you. Like you really are. But it's like, what do you do with that? Like I feel like most artists, they can't really follow up with that. That's kind of what you're saying, right?
Yeah, to a degree, that's what I'm saying. I think for the most part, it's that I just don't think that money is the key to everything.
Yeah.
After,
No, definitely not. It's got to be a number of things, like I said, kind of coming together. It's, you could have all the money in the world, and like I said, if it's not being spent in the right places, or you don't have, if you get one hit song, how are you going to follow up to that?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? To your point, and look at like the Baby Shark song, right?
Yeah.
Huge song. But does anyone even know like who made that song?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do they have any other hits or anything like that? It's you got to think about how you're going to follow up to things. And it's for me and for Hitskope, what we do is we look at long-term investments in our artists. It's about building the trajectory. If we come out with a hit single, we're not looking to follow it up with another hit. We're looking to follow it up with like some solid music that's going to keep the fans engaged, and really drive that artist to have a long-term career and not just be a one-hit wonder.
Yeah. Now, I think that there is a narrative amongst upcoming artists, and it's obviously propagated by social media and Spotify and the payout and all that stuff. I think that a lot of people think that there is not money in music at all. There's a lot of artists who think, well, how the hell can I build a career anyways if Spotify's paying me this or that? What are the revenue streams that these artists might not be thinking of? I don't think artists nowadays are thinking of radio, brand deals, TV appearances, all these different things like that can become revenues to even sync and licensing and things like that. I think a lot of people are just looking at it through this scope of how much can I get paid from streaming platforms? Oh, that's it? It's shit. I cannot build a career as a music artist.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that, and I've had this conversation, because there's a lot of Spotify's really in the spotlight right now about low payments. When they released their report, they said that about 50,000 artists on Spotify are making over $100,000 a year from Spotify alone, and a lot of people were like, "That's it." There's 10 million artists on Spotify, but for me, I was like, "Damn, that's a lot."
Yeah,
that's a lot. In 1995, there was not 50,000 artists making $100,000 a year. You know what I mean? You had to be signed to a major label and push CDs. And, back when CDs were 15, 20 bucks, only your fans were buying that. Now, even if someone's not a fan of you, but maybe they like one of your songs, they could still stream it, and you could still make money off of the people who stream it. Getting added to playlists that are being played in retail outlets, that's another way. Like, just, they may not be fans, but they're still listening to your music.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I think, to your point, there's a ton of revenue streams now. And, just because Spotify gets a bad rap. Their deal that they're in is very tough. Do I think the fact that they only pay 15% to songwriters is fair? No. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's still a new paradigm shift in the industry that we're still navigating, and we are making waves, with the Music Modernization Act and stuff to kind of push it through to get to a point where it's more lucrative to artists. But it's a work in progress. It's going to take time to get there. But
yeah. Now, you've been a huge part of that Music Modernization Act. Is that correct?
That and many other different types of advocacy that through the memberships that I'm with.
Yeah. What can you tell us a little bit about that Music Modernization Act?
Yeah, so it's really pushing for more fair rights for artists and for creator rights. Radio is one of the things that comes to mind. They don't pay artists or songwriters that that when they play their music, and one could argue that in today's day and age that the music that they're playing on radio is almost kind of like a marketing tool for the radio, because how many people still listen to radio, right? So it's really just pushing for creators' rights, to get paid fairly, and to have, we really need copyright reform. And there needs to be better laws on that. The laws are very vague that are written around copyright infringement and stuff. And we have, cases like blurred lines and things that really kind of probably shouldn't have gotten passed, that are, going to court. And we're seeing real creators, lose their credibility because they're being accused of stealing off of things that aren't really protected by copyright.
Yeah.
So it's through all the advocacy groups that I'm a part of, and when we're, presenting to Congress and working with our local senators and stuff, it's really pushing. We know we're not going to change overnight. It's probably not going to happen in a year from now, but we at least need the conversation to be started. And that's kind of where we're at. Even the Music Modernization Act, we're not going to get $1 per stream or anything like that anytime soon, but it's keeping the conversation alive, and it's getting it into Congress where they know that this is going on, and that sooner or later they're going to have to pass more suitable laws that are pertaining to these types of problems. Interesting.
When you were building your career initially, was there a turning point where you said, "Oh my gosh, now I have a solid career," or would you say it was more of a gradual process?
No, I'm not even sure I'm even still there.
Wow.
It's I'm never happy with where I'm at. I always want to be 10 more steps ahead from where I'm at now. I'm incredibly blessed, and I'm very thankful. But rarely ever do I really stop to smell my own flowers and be like, man, I have a great career. This is all going great. Yeah. Because for me, it's always, self-motivating. I have to motivate myself to work harder. So as blessed as I feel and as thankful as I am, I'm very self-aware that it could all go tomorrow. Yeah. You know what I mean? So,
especially the music industry.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, I'm constantly working, and, I'm not, like I said, I never really stop and take time to pat myself on the back or anything like that.
Yeah. Man, I feel like that feeling is such a blessing because, as you said earlier too, some people, artists or anybody else in the industry, once they kind of taste a little success, they start to take a break or they back away from it. But I feel like that feeling you said where you're never satisfied is such a blessing, because that's what really keeps fueling the fire. And some people just don't have that. They have to find ways to keep fueling that. But if you just have that naturally, or wherever it comes from, that just takes you to the top, in my opinion. And I'm sure that guys who are at the top, like a Drake or someone like that, and he says this in interviews too, he's never satisfied. He feels like he's not even done yet. He feels like he's got a long way to go. And if he feels like that too, it's that's probably a good thing to model after. So that's really dope that you feel like that, man. I feel like that every day. You know what I'm saying? So, but it's a beautiful feeling, and I think the way to combat that, in my opinion, is gratitude. Like what you said, you feel very blessed, you're grateful for it, and I think that that's kind of what balances it and makes you kind of enjoy it, but never feel content about the situation. You're always trying to grow, So that's cool.
Oh, absolutely. And it's crazy because if you look at when I wrote down my goals 5 years ago, I've surpassed most of them.
Yeah.
And it's I've had to go back to the drawing board, and I'm well, maybe I was kind of selling myself short. Tony Robbins has a great quote, and he says, you always underestimate what you can do in a decade and overestimate what you could do in a year, and it's really true. It's you could really go extremely far if you just stay consistent and you just constantly work at it. So that's where I'm at now. Most of my goals are probably unrealistic, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm more than willing to work at them to see if maybe they do come to fruition. And that's kind of my motivation every day.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Do you read books and listen to podcasts, and are you always keeping up with Tony Robbins stuff like that, or not really?
No, the Tony Robbins thing, to be honest, I saw on Instagram. If I'm being honest, I do read a lot. And I've started getting more into podcasts. For me, it's usually when I'm driving, I'm always listening to music, and trying to discover new music. But I've gotten more into listening to podcasts and audiobooks.
Yeah. Have you ever had a moment where that really just knocked you down on your knees and you were just man, I don't know if I want to keep doing this?
A specific moment?
Yeah,
mean,
or
it's
period
happened
of
for
your
sure.
life. Yeah, or period. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, kind of not too long ago, like when all kinds of like great things were happening in my life. We did the deal with Sony, and a lot of my artists were kind of having breakout years. We were getting offered, like, at one point, all of my artists were touring. One of them we signed to a TV show on Netflix. We got another one, a deal with Warner. In the midst of all that, I lost my mom to cancer.
Wow.
And it was like crazy because it was like the lowest point of my life, at the same time, the highest point of my life.
Wow.
So navigating that was really difficult. And then a few months later, we had COVID hit. So it was really tough to navigate that. But again, it's not a sin to get knocked down. It's a sin to not get back up. So, I always look at, what my mother would have wanted me to do. She would have wanted me to move forward and, work my ass off to make my dreams come true. She was always my biggest fan. So,
Nice.
so I think that was probably the most challenging. But, there's definitely been times, where things don't pan out the way you plan on them to. From a management standpoint, you're constantly dealing with rejection. Especially you're the filter for the artist. So when I'm pitching people to tours and stuff, and I'm constantly getting told no, sometimes that could be tough. But for every 50 no's, you get a yes, and that yes is usually worth 100 no's. So it's definitely a balance. It's a crazy balance, but there's never been a point where I thought like, well, I'm going to give this up or anything like that. No matter how tough things got, because this is it. This is the plan for life. There's no backup plan if this doesn't work out.
How important is it to be aggressive in the music industry, like as anybody? Because I think one quote I always think about is from Andy Frisella. He's like, you gotta be able to sprint. Like, what did he say? Or maybe it was Gary Vee or somebody, but like aggressive patience. That's what it was. He calls it aggressive patience, where you're aggressive every day. You're filling up your days as much as possible, getting towards your goals, but you're patient in the long run. Like you're kind of not so. Yeah, you got to be patient in the long run and be able to see the big picture of it. So, like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think, there is a level of aggressiveness that you definitely need. I was talking to someone the other day. Someone got really mad because I didn't respond to one of their emails. And I told them, I said, I get like hundreds of emails a day. I said, it's not that I didn't, respond to you on purpose. But I told them, I said, don't underestimate the power of a follow-up. Sending that follow-up email, a little bit aggressive, but at the same time, if you space it out and you're professional about it, that follow-up will get you to where you want, get you the result that you're looking for.
Wow.
So I think, you have to want it. They tell you at Berkeley on your first day of orientation, 98% of musicians do not make a living off music. That means you have to work harder than that other 2% that's crushing it. Wow. So, when you think of, the fact that there's 10 million artists on Spotify, you got to really work hard. There's a lot of people that are working really hard because they want this. So, I think you do have to be aggressive. You have to prove that you want it. You could try to speak things into existence as much as you want and, try to manifest the fact that you're going to be an artist and, you're going to be international and tour the world and play arenas. But if your actions don't match what you're saying, you're going to be really disappointed with the result.
Yeah, I think especially nowadays too, like a lot of people get caught up in the visualization and the manifesting and stuff. And to me, that's like a cool little supplement. Like the main shit's the action. Like whatever work you put in, and obviously being smart about what kind of work you're putting in. Like that's like the main thing. But I think nowadays, especially artists too. Like I have a lot of, I know a lot of artists where it's like it's very much if I just sit back and manifest, things are gonna come to me. And it's like, no, bro, like, you got to think about there's thousands and thousands of people who are saying that, you know what I'm saying? And, the people who are going to come on top are the people who are going to outwork you in a smarter way, too. So it's interesting, that's being marketed nowadays, as the manifesting and let things come to you and don't resist the divine timing, which I think they do play a little part, but it's mostly the work,
Yeah, absolutely. You have to believe in what you're doing.
For sure.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with trying to manifest things. It's just I've noticed, working with so many artists that the actions don't always match the words.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a big thing for me. You know, when you ask like what I look for in signing an artist, you know, it's a really big thing. An artist has to prove to me that, you know, they're worth signing. Because if I'm going to spend time, money, and resources on trying to get your career, I want to know that you're going to be capitalizing on all of that. So I mean, yeah, you know, going back to what you asked, I mean, yeah, you got to be aggressive. You got to wake up every day and live, breathe, eat, and sleep music, you know, and really prove that you deserve to be an artist, you know, because nothing is free and there is no handouts, especially in the music industry.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think that people should be especially fired up on the fact that we're living in the most technologically advanced time ever for music artists, and there are more tools at your disposal than there has ever been, and that goes for entrepreneurs as well. It's like we, you know, when me and Ryan first started working together 3 years ago, it was Google Docs, texting each other, FaceTiming, meeting up, using notes on our iPhone. And I know, I mean, I've worked for companies that still operate in that way, and there's just so many tools that are free, and there's so many ways to meet people and network and show yourself doing that too. It's like, I think over the past couple of years, social media has become this like burden on people, and they feel like social media is their enemy, when in reality, it's like if we can use social media as well as other tools in the proper way, that's only going to help you in your entrepreneurship. And I think people lose sight of that because there's lots of negativity out there.
There's no excuse now. Like with social media, and you can upload yourself music, like there's literally no excuse. And like 30 years ago, there were so many gatekeepers where it's like if you weren't signed to a label, you're screwed. Like you you kind of played the lottery in a way with music, but now it's like you literally have everything, all your business tools, music, everything, like literally in your hand on your phone. It's like there's no way. And yes, it's more competitive, more saturated, but at least you get the opportunity to prove yourself. You know, it's just whoever wants it more at that point.
And a big difference between back then and today is, you know, back then marketing campaigns were all like kind of a gamble. You know, now you can literally talk to your fans. You can literally ask them what they want. You know, and you could get their feedback on stuff. Like, you know, I was telling people like, you know, send your super fans like a song you're thinking about releasing and get the feedback on it. You know, I work with Breaking Hits, and one great thing about that is like you can upload a song, get a bunch of feedback on it, and then, you know, if your fans hate it, maybe you could go back and tailor it or something, you know? But maybe they're going to love it. And then now you know, like, okay, so I'm going to save this one. This is my uppercut. I'm going to save this one. This is going to be my big release of the year, and, you know, work your way up to that. But, yeah, I think, you know, there really is no excuse. You know, you have the world is at your fingertips now. And social media is definitely it's mentally draining. I personally don't like social media, but I use it. And I think that, you know, you kind of have to draw the line in terms of like, you know, because people can be mean on the internet. And I had an artist who, you know, was dealing with a lot of like negativity on her account and stuff. And, you know, you have to block out the noise, you know, and stay consistent, because like I said, it's a never ending sea of rejection in the music industry until it's not.
I was going to say, like, it's, in my opinion, getting all that hate and stuff like that is good in a way that it helps build your mental toughness, because the music industry, aside from the haters, is like a whole animal in itself. So you kind of need like that mental toughness to even like operate in it, like in the long run. So that hate is kind of like, if you look at it in that perspective, it's like it's something to use to your advantage, as far as like it's going to build you, especially people like me, for example, who grew up with a very supportive family. Everything was supportive. I didn't really like when I was in choir in high school and stuff like that. I was, you know, got respect and all that stuff, and I didn't get a taste of like the real world with it. And then when I first started becoming like an artist for real, then it was like I was getting punched in the face like every day. And I wasn't used to that. I didn't have the mental toughness, and I'm still building it now, but you know, 5 years ago, I was a way different person. So that hate is definitely something you can leverage to kind of build that strength in you too, you know?
Yeah. And it's important for artists to remember too that music is it's one of the most subjective things ever. Like, you know, the three of us might be able to agree on, you know, Drake being a dope artist. There's someone that despises everything Drake puts out, you know? So it's super subjective. You're not going to please everybody. As long as you're making music that's true to you and genuine to you, and, you know, whether or not you're making it for 25 million people or you're making it for 25 people, it shouldn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's who you are as an artist, and consistency. I'm a huge believer that the universe rewards hard work. So I mean, if you stay consistent, as hard as everything is, eventually you're gonna break.
Something's got to happen.
It's gonna happen for sure.
Let's kind of shift gears into some of the business stuff. So Hitskope is partnered with Sony's distribution, The Orchard, right? And so
Right.
you have access to their ability to distribute worldwide. What's the difference between that and someone uploading something on DistroKid or TuneCore?
Yeah, it's like apples and oranges, honestly. So you know, having Sony and the Orchard on your side, you know, DistroKid, you hit about 65 markets or 70 markets.
Digital markets.
Digital markets. Okay. With the Orchard, you hit a little over 300. Because it's major label backed, usually on some platforms there is a higher royalty rate that goes with that. We also distribute videos and we distribute physical. You know, physical is a very small component of what we do, but there's also that option. We also have the ability to get very significant advances from the Orchard, which is great. We have their whole marketing team for support. They have a PR team. They have a sync team that we work with all the time. They have a Spotify label relations manager that we all work with on editorial pitches. So, I mean, it's really, it comes with an entire team with that versus like DistroKid where, you know, you probably can't get an email back if you have an issue. You know, you're praying for some type of customer support. So it's a really big difference, you know. And, you know, I always say it takes a team. I think, you know, do it yourself, it kind of gets a bad, you know, stigma around it. I really like do it ourselves, you know, DIO. You know, because it does take a team, and the more people you have working it, and I mean, what better than having one of the most successful music companies of all time, like Sony Music, you know, on your side.
Yeah,
For sure.
Now, do you think upcoming artists should be seeking out independent record labels or music marketing agencies that they can pay to have a release done through or to add to their team? Or do you think we're going to begin to see a lot of artists who are doing it with their own in-house team, like, oh, I know this creative director, I know this guy, you know, I personally think that it's going to be leveraging your ability to have a partnership with a real music marketing business or a record label that's really going to catapult you. You were talking about DIY a minute ago. I think that at the end of the day, if you can quote unquote outsource all of these things to a real professional agency or organization, that's only going to help you. But there is this stigma that record labels are the bad guy and you don't want to work with a label or anything like that. Do you encourage artists to seek out working with professional agencies?
I don't think there's a universal answer for that. I think it's different for every artist. You know, some artists may choose to be independent. It's how you define success. You know, if you're making 150 grand a year off your music and you're doing it all yourself, you know, is that success? I think so. You know, you're self-sustainable off of something you love to do. So maybe you don't need a major label or an independent label. What I think record labels are good for is if you want to take what you're doing on a macro level and on a micro level and do it on a macro level. You know, so if you already have some traction and you want even more traction, I think that's where a label comes in. If you need funding, if you need someone to do marketing for you, I think a label is great for that. I do think that it does take having experts on your team to, you know, to really break an artist out or to have them break through. Because, you know, like, you know, take something simple as running ads, for instance. You could waste a ton of money running ads if you don't know how to do it correctly. Where, you know, having an expert on your team can stretch that dollar so far you wouldn't even believe it. So I think it can be done, but again, it depends on how you define success. If you're happy with, you know, your music's generating some income, you're paying your bills, and you're living comfortably, you know, I don't blame you for not wanting a label to come in and take a piece of your income and stuff, you know. The problem that I have is a lot of major label deals and, you know, 360 deals, which again, I'm not 100% against them. They work great for some people. Lady Gaga is a perfect example of someone who who had a 360 deal and it worked out amazing for them. Meg the Stallion, maybe not so much. But I think, you should definitely have a solid team either way. And I think you should only pitch to a label when you're at a point where you're ready. Because if you only have 50 monthly listeners and you're generating 200 streams a month, no label is going to want to take on that risk. But if you're already generating some income and you think a label can help take you international or put you on tour or 10 times your streaming numbers or something, then yeah, I think a label's a great option. But it's all about the deal too. It's you don't want to sign a shitty deal and then get caught with that.
To me, I feel like it's about getting clear too, and I think a lot of people, especially in music, they don't really get clear. And I'm still every day trying to get clear on like what I want and everything. But I'm aware that most people, they aren't for sure on what they want out of music. They just think, I want to be a star. I think let's just see what happens. Like I just want to do music because it's cool or whatever. But I think they forget that it's a heavy business. And I think that what you said is like having a team is great, but getting clear first to know what those pieces you want to be, and taking a step back before you even make those kind of decisions. And then building leverage, because I feel like if you have leverage, like what you said, getting traction, then you can kind of decide from there, like what do I want? Like, do I need it? I don't need it. I could do things, a little more on my own. But I think that's like the main thing that I had to discover that this past year, after working with this guy too. I was like, okay, I need to get very, very clear on what I want out of the industry, in my career. And you did the same as well. So I think that's a fundamental thing that, in my opinion, too, might take a few years of like trial and error, which it did for me, you too, I'm pretty sure. But I think that's like a big thing right there. But I think because a lot of people jump into it really quick, and just they want to go full force, with music, and then they end up, like you said, in bad deals, and it's a scary thing, man. So. Yeah. Yeah.
And, to your point, like, I always see artists, like, so excited when they have a song, like, they want to release it right away because they're like, oh, I want people to hear this, instead of, well, let me sit on this for a little bit, build up my fan base so that when I release this song, it's going to do something. But yeah, I think a lot of people just jump into it. When you're an artist, that's a business. Your music career is a business. Any business should have a business plan, where you lay out some goals, for the next 6 months, for the next year, for the next 5 years, for the next 10. And, kind of treat that as your blueprint, as your pathway to get to where you want to be. And it's always going to change. Mine's changed. Yeah. I write a new business plan every couple months, but, the more success you get and the further along you get in your career, your goals are constantly going to be changing. But yeah, I think it's important, like you just said, you got to build leverage if you want to get a good deal, because it's, this is very much a business. Everyone thinks like, oh, a record label, like, just believe in my music and, I'm in business. I'm not into gambling, so.
I think it used to be like that, right? Like they took more of a gamble with artist development and just kind of putting an artist out there and seeing, right? Before social media, right?
Yeah. Well, now there's really no reason for a major label to gamble, right? So that's why they're signing people that are huge on TikTok, right? Yeah. Even some that aren't even artists, right? They're signing like, one of the D'Amelios wasn't even a singer or anything, but they gave her a record deal because, they know she's got 50 million followers that are going to listen to it, so that it's a very safe risk. But when you look at, when I said like 90% of major label artists never recoup their deals, the money that top 10% makes them is totally worth it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I think you got to be ready, and you have to know what you want as an artist. Having a major label deal too is not like the end all be all. Like it's not what people think. I've had artists signed to major labels, and it was a disaster. And I always kind of say it's like if you were driving across the ocean, doing it independently or having like a boutique independent label is kind of like taking a jet ski. If you fall off that jet ski, you could get right back on and go. But having a major label is kind of like maneuvering with like a cruise ship. Everything you do has to go through teams of people, and you got guidelines to follow, and it's not as easy to take sharp turns with a yacht as it is in a jet ski. So it's not for everybody. There's no one size fits all. There's no one pathway that's like a surefire way to get to where you want to be in the music industry either. You know, a lot of people like to compare themselves to bigger artists. Russ is one that always comes up. People are like, well, I'm going to be like Russ and just be independent. And it's like, well, Russ signed with Columbia. I personally didn't know who he was until Columbia released those 2 albums. You know what I mean? But he had enough leverage and was already generating enough income where he got a great deal with Columbia. And now he's just independent, you know, because he's built up his fan base. He's at a point where if he releases something through TuneCore or whoever he's releasing to, he knows there's millions of people that are going to eat it up. So, you know, he's content with that. Is he the biggest artist in the world? Definitely not, you know, but he's making a hell of a living. He's got a hell of a career, and he's
one of
the
richer ones.
Yeah, and he's going to be around a long time. You know what I
man.
mean? So it's, you know, there's no one size fits all, and that's I'd love to get that point across to artists because I feel like everybody's constantly comparing themselves to, well, if I just do what this person did or whatever, and it's like, but you don't have the same team and resources as that person at that time. You know?
I think that just goes back to what you said earlier, is that a music artist is a business. And when you take a step back, because I've worked in the music industry and outside of the music industry, and I have a business right now that's not in the music industry, and it made me realize that every single artist is going to have their own unique business model, just like every company does. In-N-Out's business model is different than Del Taco's business model, even though they're both in the fast food industry, right? Their bottom lines and top lines and everything, how they coordinate all of their entire organization is completely different. So there is not a one-size-fits-all approach at all, but I do believe that there are fundamentals and foundational points that we kind of spoke about earlier that artists should adopt. But this notion that I'm going to be an artist, there is no this is how it's done, because each artist has had to build a completely unique business model. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because I hope that there are artists listening to this who maybe get a little bit of clarity and freedom from that, because you don't have to do what Russ or Lady Gaga or Meg Thee Stallion or whoever did. You are here to create your own business model. Now, with that being said, I think that's where people need to stop and say, okay, let's talk about what Ryan said a minute ago, and let's get that clarity. And let's write the business plan and try to create this unique business model. So I think that, just going back to what you said was such a good point, man, is I think there's a lot of confusion amongst a lot of upcoming artists who think the business works one way, but you can create your own business model. And I just have to put that out there so that people can understand that.
Yeah. And you know, the other thing too is a lot of artists just think that it's, you know, well, if it doesn't happen in a year or 2 years, you know, then whatever. You know, they always see the success, right? The success is always overshadows how they got to that success. You know, Andy Grammer is gigantic. He's written some giant songs, right? Everyone ignores the fact that Andy was busking on the 3rd Street Promenade for like 6 years before he got to that point. You know what I mean? And he was hustling. He was out there every day with his guitar and his rug and his tip jar and, you know, just playing covers and mixing in some originals. And then finally Ben Singer went and discovered him. And, you know, together they made a huge career, you know? So there's no overnight success. And even like if you get signed to a major label and you get a $10 million deal, that's not it. It's still very hard to make that work, to recoup that deal, because now you have a $10 million loan hanging over your head. You know what I mean? So you can't just, you know, think that there's no one that's going to come and save you, or like, you know, if you get, you know, Scooter Braun has a bunch of people on his roster that are not breakthrough artists. You know what I mean? And it doesn't happen for everybody, and it doesn't happen quickly.
And personally, I feel like getting success quick is like a bad thing, because you didn't build that skill set. You didn't learn those lessons. You didn't go through those failures. You didn't build that mental toughness that will help you in the big picture. And then, like what you said, like if you're an artist who comes up and you got like this huge deal thrown at you, but you don't know the game, you're going to get taken advantage of to the max, because all these guys that are working with you at the major label, they know all the pieces of the puzzle, and you don't know anything. You know what I'm saying? Like you have a lot to learn, and so now you're basically a puppet in a way, where it's like you got to, you know, follow what they say because they got the money for you, and once you lock in that deal, you're locked in. So I think a lot of people don't think about that, and I still have a lot to learn too, but I'm aware that, like, you know, there's a lot of things I don't know that I do need to know, you know?
Yeah. Well, everybody always thinks about the money, right?
Yeah.
And it's, you know, if you're in the music industry because you want to be rich, it's the wrong industry for you. Like
Yeah.
there's so many other industries where you could go and do that. But I think, everybody puts a focus on the money and rather than looking at the big picture and the long term. Nobody likes to go through struggles, right? I mean, none of us want to go through a struggle, but I think once you go through it and you navigate it successfully, it kind of puts your mind into a different perspective, and you can appreciate, like, well, I'll struggle for another 3 years before I sell my soul and do this deal. You know what I mean? But yeah, a deal is not for everybody, and that's definitely not a savior. It still takes just as much hard work, even with that.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
What were you like growing up? Were you like a really disciplined, like motivated, ambitious kid?
No, no.
Were you good in school?
I was very good in school, but I had some behavior problems.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really take school seriously.
Mm-hmm.
My father passed away when I was 14,
Mm-hmm.
and after that I had a huge chip on my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And I was great in school. I would ace my tests, but I wasn't doing homework for anybody.
Yeah.
And I was constantly getting suspended for stupid things or fighting or something dumb. I'm not happy with the high school me, but I think it kind of took a lot, and it took like a lot of just experimenting in life and different types of things to go through. I lived on my own since I was 18. Had my own apartment all the time. My mother always showered me with tough love. You know what I mean? It's like, well, you're not doing good. Well, you better find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
She was always there and always supportive, but at the same time, like, she instilled it in me, like, I'm not going to be here forever either. So you gotta.
My mom was like that. So that's funny.
You know what I mean? Like, you better learn this shit, kid. So it was really tough growing up, but I always. So I just started getting into like astrology. And numbers and stuff. And a good friend of mine, shout out Jenny, she ran my numbers and she saw that I have 2 master numbers, which is very rare.
Mm-hmm.
And usually those are people who go through a lot of struggles but have a lot of success.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that comes to fruition. But I started looking back on my life when we had that, and it's like, damn, definitely been through some shit.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
Was what?
The numbers, like when you found out.
This was like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this was like 2 weeks ago. So really, like, kind of like, now I'm in deep. I'm like looking at my numbers and my life path and everything else every day. So, but yeah, I think, for me, I was always kind of, I don't want to say like looking for the next best thing, but I've always been very self-aware, and I always knew what I'm capable of, and I always knew what I deserved. So
have you always had a problem working for somebody?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, sort of.
Okay.
Sometimes when I know my opinion or my, my advice is going to be much better than someone else's, then yeah, I have a problem. I think if I'm way more of a boss than my manager, there's an issue.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's been the case pretty much always. But I did have, when I was running venues, I did have an owner who kind of took me under his wing and taught me a lot. And that, was very useful for me. And even though me and him didn't exactly work great together, like, I always appreciated his advice and his input, and he instilled some values in me that I'll never forget. So I like to think that I can learn from anybody, whether it be good or bad, how not to do something or whatever. But, I can't imagine myself working for somebody now. That went out the window like 5 years ago.
You're too deep in now. Huh?
Yeah, I'm too deep in, and I think if you have a solid game plan and like I said, what you're capable of and what you can do, why go work for someone else and build up their dream? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Dude, I love what you just said. I can learn something from someone. I can learn something from anyone, even if it's good or bad, and that is so true. Every single interaction that I've had, over the last, I would say, couple months, I've really started to develop this sense of like, what can I get from this? And a lot of times, since I surround myself with good people, I take a lot of good things from good people like you guys and other people. And a lot of times I pick up on things that I didn't like or things that negatively affected me. And I think that's huge for navigating your path towards success because, you know, I'm not even going to say it. We recycle it all the time. Okay, I'm going to say it. Who you surround yourself with is so important, right? We have full episodes on that. You guys can go watch it. It's so true. But one thing that I've really taken to heart is like anytime I'm going to meet with someone, if I'm going to be in a situation, if I have to go to a meeting or even like we're going to South by Southwest this month, like there has to be something I can learn from this. If I'm driving somewhere, I tell myself there has to be something I can learn from this. Maybe I learned, God, I'm never talking to this guy again. Or maybe I learned, oh my gosh, I need to move like this person's moving. But I've really adopted this mentality of everything that life throws at me is a learning experience. And if that experience and what I learned was good or bad, it doesn't matter because it's something that can help me in my development journey, in my self-development journey and my path towards success. And the minute that I shifted my mindset and I started looking at things like that, I started looking forward to a lot of things because like I'm 25, there's like stuff changing in my life. I'm working doing this new thing. I'm doing so many things. Oh, I feel like the world's on my shoulders, you know, but now I have something to look forward to every single day. And that is that I get to learn. And so I just wanted to throw that out there.
And then I'll even take it a step further too, like where a lot of times I do that as well.
Yeah.
And another thing I throw onto that is I'm constantly looking for what I'm lacking. Like what am I lacking? And always having that self-awareness mirror, which, you know, can be a struggle at times for everybody. But it's like forcing myself to be like, okay, when I look at myself in the mirror, what am I missing? What am I messing up on? What can I do better as an artist? Like, and just keeping it real with myself. And I think that was something I really started drilling myself the past year or two. Because before that, you know, it's like, oh yeah, like I think I'm kind of talented. Like, I think I got it. Like, something's going to happen. Like, I'm in the right circumstances or whatever. But the moment I started, you know, flipping on that self-awareness mirror, like in hyperdrive, that's when, like, you know, things started really going the way that I wanted them to a certain extent. But, yeah, that self-awareness mirror, I'm always thinking about what can I learn from this person and what does he know that I don't know? Or what is he doing that he's beating me at? Like, because... And I look at the game like as in a competitive fashion, you know, like I look up to like Michael Jordan, like his competitiveness and stuff like that, even though it's a different sport or whatever. But just having that thing, I still think that because a lot of people will say in music it's not competitive, whatever. It's like everyone has their own fans, and it's true, and it's collaborative, and it's good to keep it genuine with people. But in the back of my head, sometimes I'm still like, how can I outwork this guy? Like, how can I outwork what he's doing? What is he doing that I can add to my artillery? And some, you know what I'm saying? So that's another thing I throw on as well.
And that's what I love about my team too.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, I'm really fortunate to be surrounded with some incredible people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my business partner, Richard Nash, is one of the most successful music industry executives out there. You know, he's got 35 years in. He was a senior vice president of Sony Music for a long time, Capitol, Elektra. And, you know, he constantly is, you know, he's still outworks me, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's motivating for me.
Yeah.
You know, when Neil was living on the East Coast in New York, you know, he'd call me sometimes at 5 a.m. and we'd have conference calls, you know what I mean? And it's like, I am not up at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
But, you know, I loved it and I appreciated it because it's like, well, you know, if he's up and working at this time, I should be up and working at this time, you know what I mean?
Nice.
And together, that's how, you know, we make moves and stuff. So,
Awesome.
you know, it is really important to surround yourself with great people and people that are always going to be like working as hard or outworking you, you know, and that's, you know, what I look for when we're bringing people onto our team and stuff is that, you know, I'm so fortunate to have the team that I do because everybody's just absolute workhorses. This is what we do. And there's nothing else, you know.
And I think a lot of the times too, you know, when people take that advice, like surround yourself with people that are better than you, that you want to be around, I think they forget the key component that before that happens, you have to work on yourself first to attract those people, because a lot of people will just try to throw themselves into rooms, and I used to do this too, like with like, you know, bigger names of whatever, and I would get kind of like offended, like, oh, why don't they want to work with me? Like, oh, like why? But it's like, oh, I have to put in work first, develop my mindset better, develop my skills more, go harder, and then when I meet with those people, they're gonna feel it, and then it's like an attractive thing.
Because it's like, what's your value?
Exactly.
What value are you? Yeah.
So you can't expect to just like be around great people if you're not great yourself, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And isn't it kind of weird that like music is probably like one of the few industries that is like that?
Yeah.
You know, if you told me you were a doctor, I'd be like, oh, cool, that's amazing. But it's like when you tell someone like, oh yeah, I'm a musician, they're like, well, what have you done?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, it's weird that music's like that, but it is. You know, a lot of people. You know, there's a ton of scumbags in this industry. You know what I mean? And a lot of people are always trying to leech on to people that have more success or are doing more. So it's important to kind of vet people that do come into your life, you know? But I think if you're genuine and you're a workhorse, you know, people recognize that. And, you know, I've had people, Richard was one, like, I never thought Richard would give me the time of day, you know what I mean? And, you know, he knew who I was, what I was doing. And, you know, he ended up, hey, I want to join your company after, you know, spending like a year with me and stuff. So it's, you know, it's to your point, like you got to work hard. And if you work hard and you're making noise, maybe not everybody will show that they know, but people know. People have their ear to the ground, and you know they're seeing what's going on.
You can feel it. They can feel it too.
Yeah.
With all this being said, I want to say how I got connected with you. So,
That's crazy.
yeah, this is great because I told Ryan the other day. Okay, Artist Collective posted something about you, and they tagged you. This is like a year ago, maybe. I was like, yo. All right, this guy seems pretty. I'm gonna follow this guy, whatever. No, so I followed you. I kept up with your stuff for a long time. And then Ryan and I go to Eric Bellinger's listening party in LA. And every time me and Ryan are going to go out to like a networking event or something, like we went to that Atlantic thing that you put us on. Thanks again, by the way. That was dope.
Yeah, of course.
And in the car ride, Ryan was like, I'm tired. I don't want to do this. I was like, I'm tired. I don't want to do this. But we push each other. We're like, all right, let's go. Let's network. We'll have a margarita. We'll be feeling good. So we go to Eric's thing. We had no clue how we were going to get in. The bouncer was like, yeah, I don't know. And this guy was like, you could pay me $150 and like, I'll get you in. And like, we're broke. You know what I'm saying? So then Ryan knew some like Eric's sister or something, or he saw someone that he knew. He was like, yo, like, can we roll in? She was like, yeah, come with us. So we go in and we're just chilling there. Ryan says what's up to Eric because they've known each other before. Like, hey, man, Jacob, yeah, we say what's up. Neil's standing right there. And we're all just kind of standing there. And I was like, fuck it. I hit him on the shoulder. I go, hey, man, what's your name? He goes, Neil. And I went, okay, nice to meet you. I'm Jacob, whatever. He's what do you do? He's like, oh, I have this platform. It's called Breaking Hits, whatever. So I follow him. We get real cool. Neil is a cool guy, by the way.
Neil's
like,
awesome.
Yeah,
I love Neil.
he is so dope. And so I sit there, shoot the shit with him, whatever. Then he hits me on Instagram a week later. Hey, I'm having this Breaking Hits thing or whatever. I go there and I saw you, and I was like, this guy looks so familiar. I swear I've seen this guy. And I didn't say what's up. And then I told Ryan, I was like, yo, I think I know this guy who's here. And like, I've been following him. I want to say what's up. I was like, okay, I'm going to go say what's up. I couldn't find you. So then I talked to Matt, who's Neil's son, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, is there a guy named Danny here? He's, oh, yeah, Danny. Yeah, whatever. Long story short, then we connected on Instagram. You followed me back. Here we are.
Right.
Crazy.
The
reason I'm mentioning that long-winded story is you never know who you're going to run into or where it's going to lead to. That is the one thing in music that has absolutely blown my mind. If Ryan never said, dude, please come with me to Eric's thing, like, it's last minute. I don't know if we can get in, whatever. But we had that fire in us. We said, all it takes is one connection or someone to change your career. Thankfully, I have an amazing opportunity to work with you. We've learned so much from this podcast already. Now the listeners get this. Like, you never know what that one thing is going to do for you. So take risks, take opportunity. And even if you're tired, go to that networking event.
Yeah, networking really is, you know, the key.
Yeah.
I hate to say like the music industry is all about who you know, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
You know, if you make good connections and you just help people, you know what I mean? It's amazing what you'll get back. So networking is super important. That's why I always encourage artists, like, branch out, work with other artists, you know, work with other songwriters, producers. Like, don't just keep yourself in a bubble, you know, go out there, go to events. You know, awesome that you guys went to the Atlantic thing. You know, I'm more than positive that you guys were working the room and stuff. So, you know, that's how you make things happen.
Yeah, man.
You know, you never know who you're going to meet. You can meet somebody that's going to change your life.
Yeah. I think it's that perfect balance too, like, of, you know, working hard behind the scenes and building yourself, and then networking too. Because me personally, I have to force myself to network. Like, I have to really push myself to, like you said, I get tired, whatever. Like, but I've realized like there's a lot of people in the industry, and I was like this in the beginning stages, where they will throw themselves out to network, but they don't have a good product, or they're not like built yet, or they're whatever, and they just try to make friends with everybody. But then it becomes like a relationship where there's not really much value there because you haven't built yourself first. So I think that perfect balance of like working really hard, like if you're an artist or whatever, like on your product and your craft, and your image, whatever it is. But I mean, I guess for someone like in you guys' position, it's a lot of like networking would take a forefront, right? Because you're not really building like a product.
Sure.
But I don't know, that clarity.
Yeah, well, and it's it kind of is a product. It's a service, but it's when you can. It's got to be a mutually beneficial relationship. You know what I mean? I can't tell you how many times I've had like artists just always hit me up and like, we have like a conversation and then they're like, hey, can we hop on like a 1 hour call and I could just pick your brain? And I'm like, well, it's almost like asking to like pick my pockets. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, cause that hour I could be spent doing something that's going to be far more lucrative. So it's got to be like a give and take, you know what I mean? And one thing, you were like, hey, like, how can I help you? And, very few people ever ask that. Everybody's always like, hey, can you do this for me? Can you help me with this? And maybe you could do this for me. And it's like, well, where's my benefit to that? Yeah. You know what I mean? So I always appreciate people that, come to me and they're like, I want to learn, like, I could do this, just teach me this, or, hey, can you give me this opportunity and I'll help you out with these things. This is what I'm great at. Stuff like that is super important to me. And it's important. That's how you build. You know what I mean?
Giving instead of taking, right?
Yeah. It's, when someone says, what can I do for you instead of what can you do for me, that always keep in mind. That's the best way to get to me anyway, you know what I mean? Because it's like, well, this person actually wants to make this a good relationship, a good working relationship, and I think that's why I work well with everybody that does work for me or work with me. Like, it's just, we all have that understanding that, we move better as a team, and it's like, we're not trying to get one person ahead of the other or like whatever. It's, we're all moving for a greater good.
That's what's up.
Amazing. Wow. We're going to wrap this up. It's been about an hour, but the last thing I want to say, so you're from Boston originally, right?
Yeah, I'm from about 40 minutes south of Boston. It's called New Bedford. And then my last like decade of living in Massachusetts, I lived in Boston.
I hear the accent a little bit, like certain words you say.
Yeah.
That Boston accent.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna beat me up. You had that East Coast accent, dude. I was like, what's the best pizza you've had in Cali?
Oh man. Like Domino's. No,
Yeah.
it's Domino's is like a top 5 here, honestly. Best pizza. There's this place in, I think it's like Moore Park or something, called Butler's Pizza.
Okay.
And it's the closest thing that I've had so far to like an East Coast slice.
Nice.
But you did tell me about a spot that I heard was dope.
Prince Street Pizza. I told him. Yeah. I told him.
So that's on my list. It's on my list. We had it's funny. We were at a session yesterday, getting ready for some tour rehearsals, and we ordered a pizza. And every time I order a pizza in LA, it's just so underwhelming. But the pizza came, and I'm just like, why? Why did I do it? But yeah, man, I miss the food back home. That's like the one thing that I miss more than anything, to be honest, the food.
I think I'm going to be going to Boston this summer, so I'm going to hit you up, and you need to send me a 500-row Excel sheet of like all the good stuff.
I got you. Don't worry.
Hell yeah,
I got you.
So where can everybody find you? Are you cool with everyone like following you, hitting you up?
Yeah, absolutely. Hitskope.com is the website. Danny Barros 4L on Instagram. And Danny Barros on LinkedIn.
Hitskope with a K, right?
Hitskope with a K. Hitskope. But yeah, that's pretty much all the places I'm active.
Dope. Hey, you got to sell some of those hoodies, man. I like that hoodie.
Yeah, I got you. Guys.
Cool.
I'll hook you up.
Yeah. Everyone, thank you so much. 56 episodes. Every guest has been killer. This is Inside the RV. Danny, thank you once again, man.
Thank you, guys.
And peace out, everybody.